Hey, what's up, YouTube? Just want to share this video from Pope Benedict to let you brothers and sisters know that we are in the time we are in the time of the Antichrist. We are in some dark times. Check this video out.
An explosive private letter from Pope Benedict XVI, who recently died on December 31st, 2022, indicates that Pope Benedict XVI believed we are living in the times of the Antichrist, and he encourages the faithful to pray accordingly and exhorts the pastors of the church to act accordingly. This is really big news. It comes from a private correspondence with a man named Vladimir Polko, pictured here, and it was released in an article by Rod Dreher in the American Conservative titled Benedict XVI, It is the Time of the Antichrist. Today I will discuss the contents of this, and I'll compare it to yesterday's podcast in which we discussed Benedict's last testament, his spiritual testament, which was released after his death, and how there wasn't much to it. People think it's a forgery, or if it's not a forgery, that it was something early in his papacy and is not actually his final spiritual testament. But today's letter, the private letter, explicitly indicates that Pope Benedict XVI, the late pontiff, believed that we are living in the times of the Antichrist. So we'll look at that today, and then we'll also look at what St. Paul teaches about the manifestation of the Antichrist in the Bible. What is stated there? Well, as you know, Pope Benedict XVI resigned the papacy in 2013. The day he announced it, lightning struck the Vatican. People took this as a sign that something apocalyptic was happening in Rome. He was somewhat popular with the faithful and with conservative Catholics, but with the world, with government, with globalists, with the EU and the UN, Pope Benedict XVI was not that popular. He wrote a letter to a Slovakian gentleman by the name of Vladimir Polko, and Rod Dreher gives us the background information. Polko was a member of the underground Catholic Church, and he went on to serve as the interior minister, and he had some kind of correspondence with the late Pope Benedict. He received a letter from Pope Benedict that he kept private for all these years, and in that letter, as released today, it has these words from the late Pope Benedict, and I quote, "As one sees the power of Antichrist spreading, one can only pray that the Lord will give us mighty shepherds to defend his church against the power of evil in this hour of need." Notably, this letter is dated 2015. That means he wrote this letter after he had resigned the papacy and while Pope Francis was currently on the throne of St. Peter, currently serving as the Roman pontiff. Some are already saying, is this an indication that Benedict thought that Pope Francis was the Antichrist? And I don't think that is the case. I think what Pope Benedict is indicating is that currently we are moving towards some kind of eschatological end-time manifestation, and that he believed that the power of the Antichrist was about to be unveiled. Now, you'll remember I indicated and discussed that the day of Pope Benedict's death was December 31st. What is significant about that? December 31st in the Catholic Church is the saint day of Saint Sylvester. Now, who is Saint Sylvester? Saint Sylvester was a pope in the early 300s, and he was, before that, almost all popes were martyred or persecuted by the Roman Empire. It was illegal to be a Christian. Often they would find the local bishops and the clergy and the lay people, they would torture them, and they would kill them, and they would receive the crown of martyrdom. And this included the bishops of Rome, who are the early popes. Well, all that changed in the early 300s under the papacy of Saint Sylvester. What happened? Constantine the Great, the Roman emperor, had a conversion. How deep that conversion was, the world will never know. Historians debate it. The fact is that Constantine recognized the church, he recognized the Bishop of Rome, and he made gifts to the Catholic Church. What becomes the Basilica of St. John Lateran, what becomes and is constructed as the Basilica of the Vatican, St. Peter's Basilica, those are historical gifts of Constantine to whom? To St. Sylvester, Bishop of Rome, Pope. That means that St. Sylvester was the first imperial pope in the history of the world, but in the history of the Catholic Church. And Pope Benedict dying on that feast day could be a sign that that era, that epoch in which the popes and the empire and the emperors had some sort of integrated approach. We call it Christendom in history. That this is in fact the end of Christendom, and that Benedict XVI dies on the feast day of the first pope who was able to oversee the integration of church and state back in the 320s. So that's significant when you consider that this is how the life of Pope Benedict ended. Let's look at the quote. As one sees the power of Antichrist spreading, one can only pray that the Lord will give us mighty shepherds to defend his church against the power of evil in this hour of need. Pope Benedict is indicating here that those who will be attacked are those who belong to the body of Christ, the church. And he prays that the Lord will give us shepherds, pastors, who will be able to protect, to defend, and guard the sheep of Jesus Christ. I think this indicates, and I think Benedict would agree with this, that in his lifetime and in our lifetime, now that he's passed away, we live in a time of cowardly pastors, wolves in sheep's clothing. We Catholics have seen decades of sexual abuse.
How to check if someone's spying on you? Actually, it's pretty simple. If you notice any of these signs, it's time to...
Sexual abuse, pedophilia, child molestations, embezzlement, all kinds of scandals committed by the men who call themselves shepherds, bishops, pastors, and priests. Now, this quote, as I said in the opening, comes to us from Vladimir Palko. Vladimir Palko, I hope I'm saying that correctly, a friend of Rod Dreher. And the question is posed to him, and this is a translation that Rod Dreher provided to Palko. It says, when you reported the letter for the first time, you decided not to publish part of the text, noting that it was not the right time to do so. The reason was the sensitive content and concerns that the late Pope expressed about the state of the Catholic Church. Could you elaborate on exactly what it was? And Palko, pictured on the screen, says, yes, it's like that. The letter is not long. It has 12 lines. In the second half of the letter, there's a sentence about 3 lines long in which the Pope Emeritus makes some striking claims. And then he reads the passage that I read previously. The power of Antichrist is expanding. And then he's asked, what do you think then? What do you think about it today? And he says, concepts such as the expansion of the Antichrist power, the church, in our hour of need, the need to defend the church and the power of evil are serious and weighty. All the more so because they were uttered by a person in whose expression throughout his life, accuracy was combined with the appropriateness of the terms used. Here we see, in making the observation, Pope Benedict was always very careful with the way he spoke. He was always very precise. I've said it before and I'll say it again for new viewers. And by the way, if you are new, please subscribe and hit the like button. Pope Benedict, if you asked him a question, he would pause And then the German gears in his mind would begin to turn, and he would prepare an answer in a paragraph form. He would weigh his words, arrange his words, and then speak. That is who Pope Benedict was. That's how he thought. So to see this quote that we are entering into the expansion of the power of Antichrist in our time, that's not a throwaway comment. That's something very serious, and we need to weigh it. I think the death of Pope Benedict on the 31st of...
Have you been being gang stalked? Have your friends betrayed you? Have your family betrayed you? Have you been gang stalked by FBI, Masons, Eastern Stars, church people? Have you been gang stalked by the whole world? Have the whole world come against you? Every race, color, creed, age, every color, handicap, blind, rich, poor, every religion, Christians, from Muslims to Hindus that have come up against you, attacked you, people you never seen in your life for years and years. 24/7 relentless attacks by this Antichrist spirit, these new normals. It's so unbelievable that people will not believe it. Why will this Antichrist spirit attack you? Who are you? Who are you for the Antichrist spirit to attack you? To attack you.